Well, I was going to a film camp and everybody wanted to be in front of the camera. They wanted to direct and act, and nobody wanted to edit. And I loved computers. I sat down and I realized that's where the magic was made. I got to control the story in front of the computer. And I remember coming home and telling my parents that day, I was 11, that I wanted to be an editor. And they had no idea what it was. They were like, all right, go for it. And I went to film school, ended up in LA. Just knew from that moment forward that that was kind of like my thing, my calling. So we had Avid at the camp I was working at when I was 11. It was the first thing I ever cut on. First thing. I think that was back probably, I don't know, a long time ago. I'll age myself. But yeah, it was the first thing I ever cut on, and we were doing our little summer short videos and editing the end of camp videos on it. I couldn't afford it in high school. This would have been a really big help. I had like Sony Vegas at home, which is a big difference, and then went to use it in college. I think it was just the best. It was the best software to use. It made more sense to me. It had a lot more capability than a lot of the other things I was using that I just couldn't do as much in or out of Avid, out of the other systems. Like when I would open them, it was just harder for me to figure out my way around and what I was doing, and because I started on Avid, it just made a lot of sense to me. And then as I grew and I did this as my career, I just can't imagine using anything else. It's the only tool that really works for what I do every day. I assist the editor, so my editor makes sure he has everything he needs to keep moving and working all day. It's a lot of in and out, so technically I'm managing the media and the bins and organizing, but there's also creative endeavors where we're doing sound effects and temp effects for the editor, anything to help them with their edit, basically. I think just working on within the application as often as much as possible, reading up on the new versions. I'm always looking for other tools to have in my tool belt to make me a better assistant, make me a standout assistant. So the more things I have in my arsenal, the better, and the more I can help my editor more efficiently. So for me, I love opening up a new version of Avid, seeing what's there, seeing if I can break it, and seeing what's new. And it's those little things that make my job faster, and it makes my day better in each version. So if you can spend an extra 20 minutes a day just like working with Avid or whatever program you might be using on the side, definitely helps. I think it's really important if you want to be an editor to edit all the time, and it doesn't matter what it is. So side projects, Adam's thrown me little things to do. And I will, on a lot of shows, I'll look at the dailies bin and I'll cut my own version just to understand the dailies, and then I'll watch Adam's. And it's a really great learning lesson for me to see what he did, how he got out of corners, and ask questions, and he's really open to talk about it. But I think as an assistant, it's really good to take time outside of work at the end of the day to get better at cutting, because I don't often get to do so, so I'm not using those tools and being faster at them in the Avid. So it's a really good opportunity for me to do it. Everything on the keyboard, I like to use the keyboard as much as possible. And I like to put a lot of things on my function keys, depending on what I'm doing. So if we're doing a lot of locating of, markering of audio, I'll have a bunch of different colors and jumping between markers. But I always have to view my record in a timeline, source and record. I like to jump and see my clips, just like Adam would say. Match frame, find and bin. Those are pretty great. I love working on these VFX-heavy movies. I think the workflow is really interesting. It lets us push the boundary of where the applications can go. And I just like the mix of the technical and the creative. So I think having something like Avid, where I can do a lot of temp effects and I can do a lot of workflow-heavy things and source settings and LUTs, a lot of things I would have never played with, is really important in the kind of movies we're making. I think if I had realized when I was a kid that this is the software professionals were using, that would have been a game changer for me, because you leave knowing that you're ready to work. You're ready to be an editor. If you love editing, this is what the editors are using on big Hollywood movies, on TV shows, on all the content you already love. So if I had actually realized that when I was cutting on it as a kid, it really would have changed everything for me. I had no idea that this is what they use professionally. But I think going in and realizing that you're using the same media composer that they're using on The Jungle Book and Avatar and The Lion King and all these things is really quite amazing. You're really geared up to work on those films as well. I think just creating as much content as possible and using the Avid as much as possible. The more familiar you are with your tools, the more creative you can be. So I think getting in there and making videos with your friends. I loved going home and like doing little lightsaber battles and little shoots in our backyard with my poor brother and my cousins, and just learning and editing and figuring it out and sharing it and getting response. That's the best thing you can do, is just keep creating. To me, this is it. This is like what you need to be using. And I think that's just kind of like, if you can see more people using it, it's hard to see people who aren't, like Billy Goldberg. You don't get to see like a lot of, I think that's what makes it really exciting about having a product like this. So they can see, like, you don't need Final Cut X or something that looks like super modern and hip. You've got something that works so well.